Hello and welcome to Bust and Beyond with your host Robin Hayhurst. In this podcast, Robin will introduce guests that have known failure and want to share their story about how they got through it and what happened next. This will make you learn how to see things from a new perspective and avoid making the same mistakes. Please welcome Robin Hayhurst.
Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bust and Beyond podcast. I'm Robin Hayhurst, and we're joined today by Andy Bishop. So Andy was the founder of Man Gang, an organisation for mental health for men. He's also an ambassador for the Foundation Construction, Lighthouse Construction Charity, and he's a health and safety consultant. Well, someone has to be, don't they? So anyway, welcome, Andy.
Thank you for having me, Robin. And just to point out and get it in nice and early, I never planned on becoming a health and safety consultant or trainer. I fell into it by accident.
Well, I think most people fall into the industry by accident, actually, one way or the other, from what I've been speaking to, the way I speak to people. So tell me a little bit about you. How did you fall into the industry? How did you fall into health and safety?
Like I say, yeah, it's not just a clever health and safety related joke there. It's the way I came in. I never planned on it at all. I grew up in South Wales and I dreamt of becoming a soldier. I used to play soldiers when I was growing up. So off I went, and as soon as I was old enough, I went off and joined the army. And I spent 22 years in the Royal Engineers, which the clue's kind of in the title there. The military engineering, civil engineering, very, very similar kind of organisations. The people are the same. The projects are very similar. It's just the uniforms are slightly different. So it was kind of a natural progression when I came out to pick up the health and safety baton and move into the construction industry as we know it.
Yeah, I think my father actually did his bit in the Royal Engineers. So he did. I forget it's called now, when you were forced to do it in the old days. And I think he was in building first, and then kind of went in and did his 2 years. And he hated it, but he loved the building bit. He just hated the army.
Right. Yeah, there is a lot of that in there. I dare say there's some builders out there that hate the building bit. So yeah, it happens, doesn't it, in all walks of life. But yeah, great experience though.
Yeah, and I definitely think it shaped him. So, it taught him a lot. And everyone I've met who's come out of the army has got a much better idea of team and how to work as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's I say this quite often, that it's the best leadership academy in the world. You get the best leadership training. Even when you don't realise you're getting trained, it's instilled into you from the beginning of the importance of team, the importance of knowing what other people are doing and working together as a team to fulfil the wider kind of mission, the wider objective. Absolutely.
I think that's very important. I think I often see that missing from businesses, actually, that kind of ability to lead, ability to bring everyone with you. And I think that's quite important. So tell me more about being a founder of the Man Gang and what Man Gang's all about.
So the Man Gang came about in 2019 after a couple of years of me starting to be a lot more open about my own journey with poor mental health. The similarities between the building wider construction industry and the military are massive. It's not just my experience with the Royal Engineers. That thing with men, when we may be struggling, when we may be feeling a little bit under the weather, we don't talk about it. We just put on that brave face, that stiff upper lip, and we get on with it. And those are the mega similarities. So I had a couple of instances where I was diagnosed with depression whilst in the military, and I took my sick leave, gave the doctors a good stiff ignoring, and just tried to kind of run it off, because people like me don't get depressed. I was in a position then, I was in charge of a small training team. So we were training good soldiers to be better soldiers, and I couldn't let the team down. So that was kind of my first experience. I couldn't run it off. I just put the mask on. A few years later, I got a little bit worse, and I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital where I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Didn't have a clue what bipolar disorder was. Didn't really have any interest in finding out about what it was. Just looked at the doctors, said, yes sir, no sir. When do I get out of this place? 3 months later, I was back out into the wider world of the army. My mates were saying, how are you? Where have you been? Oh, I've just been away for a little while. I'm feeling good. And off we went. And we still didn't talk about it. People knew what was going on. People had this idea, but there was such a stigma around it that I never would never talk about it. So then in 2017, so fast forward a vast number of years, in 2017, I'm working for a consultancy. I was giving everything to that company. I was throwing my life into it. Just give you an example of how much I was masking and how much I was pushing into this kind of business was I never took a day off for the first 2 years that I worked there. I would come up to Christmas time and they'd say, look, you've had no holiday. Why have you had no holiday? For 22 years of my life, I've been told when to take holiday. And that was kind of the party line. But the real reason was I couldn't couldn't cope with doing nothing. If I was doing nothing, then that would mean I was alone with my thoughts. The demons would perhaps start to take over. So I just had to keep going at 110 miles an hour all the time. So it's not sustainable. I had a burnout. I had a breakdown, ended up in a disciplinary. I'd got really angry with somebody over something really small. And that triggered a bout of big depression. I'll be honest about it. I was going to end my life during that period. And then something happened. A very, very close friend of mine sadly killed himself in July of 2017. And that rocked my world. It really did, because I'd been in that position, and I couldn't help feeling the guilt of, had I told my mates the truth about what I was going through, he might have felt comfortable in confiding in me and he'd still be here now. So I went back into work some 6 months after the initial incident, which led to me finding myself in that situation. And I was in a really good place. I'd started doing the therapy. I'd started doing the medication again. I'd really started looking after myself and found myself in a really good place. And I started talking about what I'd done, what I'd experienced, generally talking to construction workers. And I'll never forget the first time I started doing this talk thing. It was on a site manager's safety training scheme course. It was on day 4 of a 5-day course with lots of people from the industry, people that have been in the industry for 20, 30 years, renewing tickets and things like that. And I decided, I still don't know what pushed me to tell this story that day, but I decided to tell them my story, warts and all, for about 20 minutes. And I remember thinking, that's it, I've lost them now. Any respect they had for me, any kind of professional respect that they had, any personal respect that they had, it's gone. They're just going to ridicule me now for the remaining day and a half on this course. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen. I'd realised that very quickly that what I'd done was held a mirror up to these chaps. And what I was telling them, a lot of them could relate to it. And if they couldn't relate to all of it, they can certainly relate to pieces of it. And I spent the rest of that course, all through lunchtime, I was engaging with the chaps on the course. There was people wanted to speak to me at tea break, after tea break. I'm like, there's something in this. So if I can inspire people to talk to me, then surely we can change something. So I started public speaking almost. So I became a plenary speaker for Mental Health First Aid England on their instructor courses. I would go and tell my story. And off the back of that, this was when the Lighthouse charity were sponsoring a lot of MHFA courses. Off the back of that, I was getting invited to talk to construction companies about mental health. And on one of these talks that I'd done, somebody said, you should start a men's group. And I said, no, I don't have any qualifications or anything. But it kind of, that planted the seed. This person believed in me and said I had the capability to do it. So off I went and started planning it. I'm not going to lie, I sat on it for a long time. I couldn't find that spark to get the ball rolling. And then one day I decided I was going to start it in 2020. January 2020 was going to be the start date. So September 2019, I was sitting on my sofa just over there and watching Coronation Street. I wasn't watching Coronation Street, my missus was. And I was idly flicking through LinkedIn and I put a post on saying, does anybody have any experience in starting a group like this? Can you give me some advice, tips and guidance? And I'm going to be honest, I hit loads and loads of negative feedback. Loads of, you've got no qualifications, what are you going to bring? It's a dangerous place to be and stuff. But hidden amongst all those messages, there was one message from a chap that had 3 little words in it. I need help. So that was it. The very next day, I started the first Man Gang meeting. Kind of already had the venue set up. It's my partner's cafe in Romsey. So I had the venue. All I needed was the people to come in, and that was it. So funnily enough, the chap that sent me that message that said I need help, he was one of the delegates on that course where I'd first opened up. So that's how we'd met. That's how it all came around. So fast forward to now, we've got 5 groups around the Southampton and Hampshire kind of area. During lockdown stuff, we literally went international. We were getting hundreds of guys coming on Zoom calls every week, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week, from as far afield as Mexico, US, Canada, Switzerland, all over Europe. There was men coming on and just joining in and having a conversation. And it was, truly, truly magical. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's an amazing story. I mean, I kind of set out in this podcast because of an experience I had of a company going bust, but it's morphed into so many other things. It's been a real enjoyable journey for me because I've met people, mainly because from very early stage, suicide kept coming up as a recurring theme, and mental health, because it really is the thing that tips people over the edge. And so it became more not just about business, but about people, which has been quite amazing. And I've had some fantastic guests who talk around the subject of suicide, both in, adults and in children, in fact. So and I think it's really powerful. My brother-in-law attended one of your talks and he was blown away by it. He said it was amazing. He said everyone listened, everyone was interested, because everyone's affected. I mean, everyone's affected by mental health at some stage in their life. And that was the idea of the podcast, that the podcast is to say, look, terrible things happen, but you can learn from them, you can move forward. There is life beyond them. And I think that's why I started it, but it's taken on a bit of a life itself. We had a chat a few weeks ago, and you were telling me about a chap that came up to you in, was it Brighton?
Yeah, that was so again, that's the chap in Brighton, the Brighton story. It's one of my favourite kind of stories, and it really cemented the reason why I do what I do and why I'm so passionate about what I do. So I'm a Southampton supporter. Me and my partner like to follow Southampton. We don't go away as much as we used to, but yeah, Southampton were playing Brighton, down at Brighton in an FA Cup match. So we jumped in the car and we drove on down there. Now, our daughter was in university at the time, down in Brighton, so we kind of knew the area where the stadium is and everything. So we parked outside where halls were, and we walked back across the stadium from the wrong side as an away supporter. So started walking around the stadium. We're Saints supporters in amongst all the blue and white of all the Seagull supporters, and there was a little bit of anxiety there about going into an away end, if you like, or the opposite supporters. And I became conscious of this big fella running towards me. Big giant chap, puts me to shame. I'm 6 foot and like 18 stone. This fella's like 6'6" and really, really broad, and he's running towards me. And I remember like tightening my partner's hand, thinking, "Yeah, I'm going to get a slap here. I'm going to get lumped here if I'm not careful." Because you can see the emotion on this guy's face. And then as he got right up in front of me, the emotion that was on his face, it wasn't anger or anything like that. He had a great big grin on his face. And I was like, "Wow, this is so surreal." And as he got right in front of me, I recognised where I knew him from, but I couldn't do anything or say anything because he just enveloped me in this giant bear hug. And it pulled me in like really close, massive, massive hug. While he was in this embrace, I kind of reciprocated. He said, "Thank you." And then he let me go. I said, "Mate, awesome to see you. You're looking fantastic. Why thank you?" And he said, "Listen, if you hadn't have opened up on that and told us that story the way that you did," he said, "I wouldn't have spoken to my missus. I wouldn't have spoken to my boss. I wouldn't have spoken to my doctor, and I would not be here now." No, he wasn't talking about being at the football match. He was talking that he had been in a dark place. And just by listening to me, I had potentially inspired him to go and seek the help that he needed. And that was, it was magical. Can't remember the score, can't remember the game, can't remember where I was just on a whole wave of, positive emotion off the back of that.
Well, it sounds like a magical moment. I mean, I work with a lot of people and I hope I'll make a difference to their lives. I haven't had a moment quite like that. So I look forward to perhaps happening one day. I think it's great that you do that. I mean, I've always thought in life, I'm a giver. I really enjoy giving. I'm not a great receiver, whatever connotation you put on that. But, generally people who give me presents, I'm always a little bit underwhelmed or maybe. Whereas I love to give, and my wife often complains about me because sometimes I don't buy her anything because I can't afford to buy what I want to buy. So because I can't kind of do what I want to do, I kind of do nothing, which is bad. It's a bad way. But it's great when you kind of have that effect. So you've been working with the Lighthouse charity, which I came across, strange enough, because I met Bill Hill, the CEO, at the Federation of Master Builders Annual Awards, which is a fantastic event. It was just, been to other award ceremonies, which are really about bums on seats and making money. This was about celebrating the industry. It was really nice. And I went up to him and I said, I have this podcast, Bust and Beyond. And he went, "Yeah, I listened to it," which I was a bit taken back from. So I thought it was quite nice. And I had a long chat to him on the podcast and before, actually. What an amazing charity. I didn't know. I'm in the industry. I did not realise kind of their role and what they do.
Yeah, and that is completely par for the course when we go out with the Make It Visible campaign vans, if you like, go out on the sites. It's something that is prevalent across the industry. And when you think about the charity's been in existence since 1956, then this Make It Visible campaign is really getting out there and we're really hitting the people that we're there to support. But yeah, I keep learning new things about the charity every day. The connections, the services that we offer, the assistance that we've offered. And when we're going out on site, some of the best things that happens is when I ask the question to the guys in the room or in the yard or wherever we're doing the talk. I'll always say, like, who's heard of the charity? Usually there's only 3 or 4 people's hands that go up, but sometimes, and it's happening more often now, a hand will go up and we say, "All right, so what do you know about the charity?" you saved my life. And it's like, wow, would you like to share it? And then we don't really have to do anything. If we've got somebody from within that group of tradesmen coming out there and saying, yeah, I was in this situation, I phoned up that number, the charity helped me with X, Y, and Z, and now I'm still here. That is, I'm goosebumping now just thinking about some of the occasions when that's happened. But that's just some of the crisis intervention that we kind of get involved in, and the education stuff as well. There's so many mental health first aiders that have been trained. There's so many people who've got a much wider awareness and become better humans because of this amazing charity that I'm so proud to be a part of.
I think one of the problems with the industry, and I get this a lot in kind of what I do, is that people get a trade and they're forced into some form of self-employment. Going out there and actually working for someone doesn't really work nowadays, for very few, but rarely, which means money management and those kind of skills of running a business are so important, and they haven't got them. They've got a trade, they're a really good plumber, or they're a really good electrician, or whatever. So money becomes a real issue, particularly if you're earning enough to kind of meet that VAT threshold. You've got CIS, you've got, all the other things you have to cope with. And people can get in a real muddle. And they start relying on credit and credit cards and other things to get them through, and things never improve. And they kind of look down a kind of rabbit hole. And lots of people cope with that by sticking their head in the sand and hoping it will kind of wash away, and, people won't actually chase them for it. So what I understood the Lighthouse charity do is they have people that come in and negotiate your debt for you, help you kind of get it onto an even keel, get it, they speak to HMRC, they support you in doing that. And I think that is so important. Even in my life, I've had times where I thought, my God, can I see myself out of this situation?
Yeah, it's absolutely, it is. And you and me both, Robin, I've been in that situation, having been in the military for 22 years. I've had 3 square meals a day and a roof over my head, and I've not had to lay anything out. Everything's taken out of source. Essentially, the money I got in my bank account was beer tokens. We won't go down that route, though. I did spend a lot of beer tokens. But yeah, when I got made redundant in 2020, and the end of the kind of COVID pandemic, we were coming out the other side of it, and it was like, right, what are we going to do? Am I going to go and find another job, or shall I stick with what I'm doing? And I made that decision to go self-employed. And yeah, I wish I had some education back then about what to do, because I've made a mess of it. However, now I've been asking the questions. Now I've educated myself a little bit. I've followed some of the learning that we've got on the Lighthouse stuff. So yeah, even I use our kind of resources there, not to better myself, but to better understand things and what I should be doing. Yeah, it's been hard, but I'm getting there. And yeah, I wouldn't look back at all now.
Yeah, I think if you do struggle with managing your money, particularly if you are self-employed or you run a small limited company, there's a book I can definitely recommend called Profit First. Just a simple system of putting things in different accounts. It's like the old envelope system that, they used to use in the old days when we had cash. But, take your VAT out, put it in a different separate account, take the CIS out, and also it flags up if things are going wrong really early. So if you haven't got enough money, once you take that money out, there's something going wrong, And people often don't understand their own worth and their own rates, and simple things like building a hourly cost. An hourly cost isn't what you want at the end of the day. It's what you cost, which is your van, your tools, your holidays. All that's got to be costed into it. So I've seen people that, have got an hourly cost or a day rate, and they're actually losing money on it.
I can well imagine, especially working in a field that I find myself in as number one, as a health and safety professional, but now also working in the wellbeing space, and people they hear the word charity or kind of well-being and mental health and stuff like that, and they assume that like I'm an artist and I'm going to do my work for free. I've still got to get there. I've still got to stay overnight sometimes. I've still got to do all the bits and pieces. And yeah, the amount of times I get knocked on the price, or people try and knock me. But now it's quite hard. I'm actually conscious now. If I don't think it's the right price, if I think I should be getting more, I will actually say that no, I can't do it for that. I can recommend somebody that will. And that's kind of me then saying, yeah, we can't work together, but I know somebody that maybe is just starting out that can come and work with you. But it's the same with the boots on the ground. It's the same with the chaps. So let's go with a civil engineering company on a house building project. Can you just? But they won't go to the supervisor. They won't go to the contracts manager, the people that will put in that variation or put in those extras on the bill. They'll go to the guy on the ground. And because that site manager is wearing a black hat, that site manager might be a little bit loud and might be a little bit pushy. The person you're speaking to, if you're speaking directly to that young chap on the ground, he's going to say yes because he doesn't want to lose his job. So
yeah, I mean, can you just is a phrase I use a lot. So absolutely get that. And also, often small contractors doing residential stuff, the client will say, can you just? And in fact, a little plug for me, I'm doing a workshop on the 28th of February, which is really for contractors to listen and design their client's journey to make sure they get away from can you just, so that they actually manage their client's expectations from the start, from the receiving the tender from that point, and have a process to follow. And so many people don't, and they just say, well, I get on all right with my clients, but I've got a couple of, dodgy clients. Clients out there in this industry, they're so kind of worried about cowboy builders. They're kind of thinking you're going to become one, and they're looking for the signs all the time. So you've got to manage them really carefully. And that can you just, it adds up. And if you're not strong-willed, and if you haven't said, look, if you ask us to do anything that's outside the specification and drawings, or there's any changes, even if there's no cost involved, we still need written instruction because we need proof that it's been done. If you say that on day one, it's not a shock to them. They don't think that you're trying to con them or have them, And that's...
They'll still try, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you will get the odd one will try. But, if you just kind of keep to that and keep to your system, it'll also mean you'll capture anything that is an extra cost. And you explain at the beginning what's included, what isn't included. The meeting before you start with your clients is so important because you need to go through everything. So the idea is there's no shocks at all, none. Your client hasn't a single shock through the whole process. There are no shocks for them. And that really helps. But you can see also I've seen it myself with subcontractors on big sites where someone approaches the guy on the ground and says, can you just unload that lorry?
Yeah.
That's not in their price. Yeah. And it's trying to be fair with people. That's the problem. I once worked for a very large company who just decided that they were going to try and save some money by no day work. Absolutely no day work for anyone. Well, the drawings were wrong. There's all kinds of things wrong. So I was as a site manager then, I was trying to get people to do work without paying them. And it was a nightmare. And I was a site manager and there was a project manager. I won't use any names here or name the company. But some lads came in over the weekend and knocked all the walls down of the green walls of the kind of first lift. So I went to the bricky foreman and said, yeah, we need to rebuild those. He said, well, I need a day worksheet for it. And I said, well, no, you just need to rebuild it. Well, I'm not doing it. So I remember I'd got radios for everybody on site. And I radioed the project manager. He was my boss, not a great boss though. And said, look, we're in this situation, we're going to have to issue day work. He said, yeah, fine, we'll issue a day work. Well, got first sensible decision he's ever made. So I said to him, right, I'll do the day work. About 3 days later, the building manager, so his boss, came down. And at that point, the bricky foreman, I know is on a wind-up, walked into the site hut and said, I want the day work for the brickwork. And the building manager went off his head and said, no day work, we've told you no day work. Why did you authorise day work, Robin? And I said, well, because the project manager did. He went, no, I didn't. And that was the kind of thing. And I lost it. They nearly sacked me because I lost it in front of the bricklayers. I can't stand that kind of, approach. But also, what you don't realise about radios is everyone hears something.
Yeah.
There was no question about it. But yeah, you can't take that approach. You've got to realise that unless you're perfect, you're going to have day work and you've got to allow for it.
Yeah, exactly that. I suppose from that experience, that's where your advice to get a written instruction for everything stems from.
Partly. I mean, it's just, I've worked for big companies and I've learned a lot off them, but generally about how not to do things. So you understand the culture starts to get very toxic. So that's not good for mental health, or anything else. Yeah. It's definitely not good for building a team relationship. We used to get sent on courses, and it was very clear that there was health and safety courses, that the courses were about us signing something to say we've been on the course so we could be blamed if anything went wrong. I mean, I was asking questions like how you can support this, how you can make sure the subcontractors are aware, how are you going to manage this? And they weren't interested in answering them. So you could kind of see that the whole company was quite toxic.
Yeah.
And it's a big problem in the industry that larger companies don't kind of get a handle on this.
Yeah, definitely. It's something I see across all kind of levels in all kinds of companies, from small 5-man subcontract gangs to big kind of tier ones. They're all the same. There's somebody that's the same. And there's great people out there. There's great great managers of process and people out there. There's also bad managers of people and process, and they are wherever you look. Some people get on in the industry because they're brutal and they're making money for the people that sit above them. Some people get on in the industry because they get the job done because they're people. I know which one I'd rather work for, and I know which ones have the lowest churn rate amongst contractors and stuff. Do you know, it just made me think of a time there I was helping somebody with a tender. They had a special clause that they would put into this price, basically. If they found out who the project manager was going to be on that particular job, there was a clause in there that meant that they were never going to win that job because the price would go up so much. So yeah, luckily they were in a position where they didn't need to win every job. So yeah, they put the paperwork in, put in this little clause, and it would like triple the amount, and they wouldn't get the job just because of one man's name.
I think there's a lot of that, and I see it so much in the industry. And I've seen people that I really respected in the industry, and I've seen people that I absolutely didn't. And the old kind of, and it's not quite so prevalent now, but the backhanders and the envelopes and stuff like that. I've seen that in clerk of works. I've seen it in site managers, and companies are really not good at taking action. The site manager will think he's getting close to getting caught out, and he might have had tens of thousands of pounds worth of materials and labour and dead men and all this kind of stuff. And the company just kind of let him go. And you think, well, what does that say? There's definite proof here that something's going on, and your subcontractors are involved and your suppliers are involved. But that isn't as prevalent as, I don't think it's as prevalent as it used to be. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm really keen with my larger companies I work with is trying to put a mentoring system in place. So everybody comes in, they're accountable to someone, but they've also got a mentor. And I think that's game changing. I think if you have a mentoring system in place, you've got someone to go to with any problem, not just something at work, but also someone to talk about how your relationship with your boss is going. So I think that kind of solves a lot of problems.
I think we do that to an extent, and I think in the bigger companies we do that with the kind of the development programs we've got at kind of office level. So like the QSs will always work with an experienced QS, for example. The assistant site manager, the trainee assistant site manager will work with and have a long in the tooth or experienced assistant site manager and so on. There's always somebody there that is mentoring people through at that level. But when you go all the way down to the guys that are actually out there in the concrete, the ones that are laying the bricks and stuff like that, their mentors are usually somebody maybe in college. So if they're on an apprenticeship scheme, their mentor is somebody that they only see once a week, and they might be removed from that person as well. So yeah, the mentorship scheme, I think it needs to happen at all levels, and it should be part of the course. You bring on a new tradesman into the company, no matter where he's come from, he's got to be taken under somebody's wing to learn the company way and learn the processes and procedures as we go through.
No, that I totally understand that, and I think mentoring, yeah, absolutely should start, because we get some really good, bright people come in at labouring level. First time I ever walked into site, I was a labourer. It was for Dad's company, so maybe silver spoon in the mouth kind of applies. But I was given a hard time because of that. Being the boss's son on a site, when he had 4 or 5 sites going and mostly 60 blokes working for him, I wasn't given an easy ride. But that's how I kind of started off, and I liked being outside. There's lots of things I liked about the industry. Despite the fact I kind of tried to pivot off into the police force at one stage, but then came back and kind of settled in and got stuck in, really. There's loads of positives about the industry that I think people don't understand. And there's loads of opportunity for progression, particularly if you're willing to do the work outside of work.
And doing a day's work.
If you're willing to just read the books, just go on a few courses, there's loads of stuff free out there. You can progress, and it's quite easy then to set up your own business.
Yeah, exactly that. There's so many opportunities, but then it comes down, and again, I'm going to go back to the boots on the ground. Sometimes the opportunity is just walking onto site in the morning and doing a day's work, and that's the only opportunities there. And it's something that is, yeah, especially in house building, it seems to be almost the way that everybody's struggling. Everybody's just making ends meet. When you're talking to them at tea break, or when you're having a walking from point A to point B and you're chatting about life in general, everybody seems to be really struggling. And I think that circles all the way back to kind of what we were saying about money education, that basic finance education for people in school, perhaps as they're coming into college, maybe on the apprenticeship schemes and stuff, they could have a couple of hours here and there saying, look, this is the accounts that you need. You need to register here. You need to register there. This is what it's really going to cost for you to go out and become a tradesperson. And then once they've got that solid foundation, then when it does come time for them to make that decision to perhaps go self-employed or start up a gang as they grow kind of organically, then they've already got that foundation. It's one of the most prevalent things that we hear about when we're out on site is people can't afford to live.
Yeah, I mean, I think house building, the major builders are all about cost. So if you're a major house builder and you're building, 10,000 houses a year, and you can get rid of the COVID in one room, 200 quid saving, 10,000 times £200 is a bit of money.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So that's generally the way they approach it. They're about numbers. They're about kind of getting out there, making a profit for their shareholders. They're not about having a good name. They're not about, the good name if it helps it sell the houses, but not, whereas the kind of few tiers below, we've got some fantastic small house builders who might build up to 50 or 60 a year, got a completely different approach. It's about quality. It's about really setting a precedent and a standard, and they're coming through. But it's more and more difficult for them now because as a big builder, you can spend 150,000, 200,000 on trying to get a plan permission on a big site. You've got so many other sites, it just kind of doesn't matter. As a small builder, your 30, 40, 50,000 pounds you have to invest at risk, 2 or 3 of those, and you might not be there anymore.
Exactly that. Yeah. Yeah, the advantages of small builders as well, though, and working for a number of small kind of regionals, their payment terms are usually pretty good. They're normally very good payers, especially if they've been a bricklayer, for example, and they've got into developing, and they've gone through that where they know how important that getting paid on time, getting paid the right amount on time is essential. But then once you get onto it, like you're just saying, then they don't care about the reputation because they know they get rid of a firm of bricklayers, there's going to be another firm of bricklayers snapping at their heels to come in and maybe do it cheaper. But yeah, buy cheap, buy twice. That's the one I always think. But then they pay. I think for me, it's a false economy, especially in the industry where we're pushing and driving, and we're pushing towards the year ends, typically July and Christmas as you're going in the house building market. But then you're paying all the extra in the snagging and the guarantees, and it makes no sense to me that we push and drive and push and drive and push and drive, and then quality goes downhill and we spend all that money rectifying it.
No, and the most successful people I work with have quality first and foremost.
It's got to be, innit?
I think, and also we're running out of subcontractors. They're out there looking for work, but they've only got so many people they can work for. So actually, if you do force them off site by not paying them, I mean, how can you allow someone to give you 60 days payment terms or 90 days? You're lending them money. You're a small, every penny you get in, you need it now. You don't want to be, if you're funding that money somehow because you're having to pay out.
Yeah.
So where is that right in the world?
I have no idea. It's like, yeah, well, we'll do you a favour. Give us a discount for paying you in 30 days, and paying you in 60 days. Give us a discount, but only if you've done everything that we've asked for.
Yeah. Again, the large company I work for, it was almost like trying to trip the subcontractors up so you can have another 30 days. We didn't get that through to me in time.
Yeah.
Well, I did. I sent it by email. I didn't receive it. And all this kind of stuff. It's just disgusting, really, how people are treated. When I was running my company or the family company, we used to pay people, end of the month, invoice in, 14 days later, we got them paid, because we had the money. We had the money there, sitting there. We did our thing with the bank. If we had to pull any down, that's how we did it. And, the same for us or for our contractors was, money owed by our company was money in the bank.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good way to be.
Yeah. And we were able to do that right up to the end when we failed due to we didn't get paid. So we were kind of changing our model a little bit, but that's definitely good. So if someone wants to join Man Gang or wants to see you on your tour, what do they do about it?
So to join the Man Gang, we are based in the Southampton area. So we everything we do is face to face. We try not to do too much remote stuff these days because face to face is where the magic happens. You can read a person better. You can offer out that all important hug if needs be. So yeah, we have face to face meetings around the Southampton area. So Southampton, Romsey, Winchester, Eastleigh every Wednesday. Did I mention Southampton then? Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every Wednesday at 6:30, free to attend, no need to register or anything, all totally free and confidential. It's just literally just turn up. We also put on a couple of or 3 events throughout the year. So things like we'll go gardening, or we might go and spend a day on a farm doing some sheep shearing, or we did one particularly good event which was called Catch It, Kill It, Cook It, Eat It. So yeah, you could join in at various points throughout the day. I'm sure you can kind of guess the theme of it.
Well, not for vegetarians then.
Not for vegetarians, no, but we catered for vegetarians. We had a number of people that didn't want to get involved in the butchery kind of side of it, and they made some nice fresh pea soups. They picked peas from I think it's vines that peas grow on, I don't know, and they all sat around chatting and shelling. And that's what it's all about. It's all about getting people together in situations where they might not necessarily find themselves, but seeing that connection that comes from the back of it. Because pretty soon, once you're all doing the same thing, it's like a gang of bricklayers, isn't it? They're always yapping away on the scaffold. But this is happening because people just want to be their natural kind of supportive conversations, and yeah, with people that are either coming through a storm or in a storm, and you're able to help.
Well, I've just started a network group in person. So the first meeting was on the 24th of January. So it was after my workshop, and it was in a lovely restaurant in Hitchin, and we had about 45 people turn up.
Oh, really good.
So it was great. Everyone was buzzing. It was about kind of introducing trades to contractors to developers, suppliers, all that kind of stuff. And it was just a great night. So we'll do another one on the 28th of February, same place, so in Hitchin. And then hopefully, if it kind of grows, we're going to try and hit some other cities around the country. Because I think there's a shortage of good networking groups. They're just there for that, not with a BNI kind of take on it, or, number of seats or number of referrals, just to kind of chat, and maybe a few guest speakers. So yeah, so we're trialing it in Hitchin, and then we're kind of looking at Manchester, somewhere down south. Maybe we'll come visit you.
More than welcome. Like I say, yeah, free to attend, and no need for registration. But
brilliant.
On that note, there's a lot of networking gets done in our men's groups. There's guys that have gone out. They might have been unemployed or looking for a career change or something, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this company that I know are looking for somebody. Exactly. And then away they go, and that's all that person needs to start thriving again, is somebody else to believe in them and a chance. So yeah, that happens quite a lot.
Well, I've always believed that on a company level, you've got contractors thinking there's no subcontractors out there. You've got subcontractors thinking there's no contractors out there. We just need to get them to meet.
Exactly that.
That's it. And meeting face to face and having some, kind of gut feeling about the person and what they can do for each other. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You cannot knock a face-to-face meeting, and I think that's why the Lighthouse Make It Visible tours are so powerful. We're not going out and putting a poster up. We're not going out and playing a video at an induction or something like that. We're going there. We're stopping the site for 45 minutes to an hour, and we're telling real stories and effing and jeffing and connecting with the people we need to reach on their level, and that's what it's all about. I think that's why we're overbooked.
Well, that's brilliant. That is absolutely, you're doing a really good thing out there, and I'm sure it's having a huge impact. Well, thank you, Andy, for joining me. Really enjoyed speaking to you. So what's the website again, just for anyone who wants to kind of work out where you're meeting and all that kind of stuff?
So for Mangang, it's mangang.org. Nice and simple. There's a website there. There's plenty of ways to get in touch, WhatsApp and Messenger and email and all the other usual kind of things. We're on all the social media channels as well. And for the Lighthouse, if you have a look at makeitvisible.info, that'll give you all the information you need. There's plenty of learning resources there. You can get on there and book us to come on tour. There's all the company support information. It tells you all about everything that the Lighthouse do, from the education all the way through to the crisis intervention. So yeah, that's mangang.org and makeitvisible.info.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Robin.
Thanks for listening to Bust and Beyond with Robin Hayhurst. Be sure to tune in next time And visit his website at robinhayhurst.com.